Welcome back to another episode of the SRU podcast with me and my guy Will Royal. How you doing today, Will?
It's been a minute. We took an extended break for Thanksgiving, but we're back. We have a lot of college football to recap, especially ahead of championship weekend coming up, starting on Friday. And we do have college basketball because all those, early tournaments got wrapped up over the weekend, and we saw a lot of good games, didn't we, Bryce?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I'm sorry for not having an episode last week. We tried, but with us having family over our houses and traveling, it was hard to schedule a podcast. So we're sorry we didn't have pick'ems last week, and I'm actually kind of mad because I could have been ahead of Will or at least caught up to him because I am a game behind.
Yeah,
But hey, stuff happens and life happens. But we will have an episode today, which is
today's Wednesday.
Thursday. Well, for us, it's Wednesday. From where y'all watching, it's Thursday, and we will be recording that night or tonight, and have an episode on Friday. So, we do have new college football polls. Will's going to start us off with that.
Yeah, there was some shakeup in this playoff picture because Ohio State lost. LSU basically eliminated from any sort of contention. Thank you, A&M. I never thought I'd say those words. But Georgia still number one. Michigan now up to two. TCU up three. USC up to four. Ohio State dropping down to five, and then Bama at six. Um, we're kind of basically wrapping up with these four teams most likely are going to win their respective conference championships. But if one or two were to lose, we could see a one-loss Ohio State jump back in, or maybe even a two-loss Alabama. Fingers crossed. Um, I know that that's something no one wants to see, but
Yeah.
some of the big followers this week: LSU dropping down 9 spots after their embarrassing loss to A&M. Oregon, after losing their in-state rivals, they're now below Oregon State for the first time in I don't know how long.
Forever.
Oregon State's at 15, Oregon's at 16. And then the three newcomers this week are South Carolina at 19, Mississippi State at 24, and NC State at 25. Ole Miss, Cincinnati, and Louisville all dropping out after losing to their rivals this week.
Yeah. And speaking of Ole Miss losing to their rivals, that is our first game. We're not going to really do stats, but the Egg Bowl was Thursday on Thanksgiving, which it usually is. Mississippi State upsets Ole Miss 24-22. Well, I don't know if you watched any of that game. I didn't because Thanksgiving, I'm really watching NFL football and probably
Yeah.
going to a movie with my family, which is our Thanksgiving tradition, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a little bit of it because I was working Thanksgiving Day. I was able to watch the second half of it. And living in Mississippi now, I realize like how big of a deal this rivalry is. Even on my way home, going back to Memphis, driving through Oxford, I saw a sign that said Hail State taped underneath the sign that said University of Mississippi next exit. So, and I actually did take a picture with the Egg Bowl. It was in town earlier this week, and that was kind of a cool thing to see because Bama doesn't have a rivalry trophy. Not like Arkansas does with LSU and Missouri.
Y'all don't have an Iron Bowl trophy?
We used to. It hasn't been used in I don't know how long. It's called, I think it was like the ODK Fox Sportsmanship Trophy or something like that.
Which is very surprising. The biggest rivalry as y'all the Iron Bowl is it's probably the second biggest rivalry in college football, in my opinion. I would think y'all would have a trophy, but
I
that's
mean, Michigan Ohio State doesn't have one.
well, yeah, yeah, that is kind of weird too. But, but other than that, Mississippi State. Honestly, I probably would have picked them to win this game just because how Ole Miss played against Arkansas and how their season's been. Ole Miss season has been. It's a lot of ups and downs, even though they were ranked number 20 last week. Mississippi State has actually looked good. They lost to teams they really should have lost to. Other than that, I have no complaints over Mississippi State's season, and I can't wait to see how Mike Leach builds on the season coming up to next year. Who would have thought? Well, this college football season has kind of been fast. Like we're towards the end. What 2 games?
Yeah,
But
like this is championship weekend, and then the weekend after that is Army Navy, and then bowl season starts up.
yeah. So I feel like next week we'll probably get into bowls matchups that we like and probably pick the bowl games or pick the games that we're going to review, but not pick the scores or anything or pick the teams or anything. We're going to wait to the the weeks of the bowls, I guess.
Yeah.
But our next game is NC State beating UNC. It's that was a pretty big upset in my opinion because Drake May, a lot of people had him potentially coming out of nowhere and winning the Heisman. We really hadn't even talked about him all year. I think we probably talked about UNC probably once this year, but yeah, he's been really flying under the radar. They won. NC State won 30-27. Um, didn't really pay attention to this game either, honestly. Will?
Yeah, kind of the same. And I think it went to double overtime or something like that. But North Carolina still has to play Clemson in the AC championship. We'll talk about Clemson in a second. But like you said, a lot of people didn't really see Drake May as a Heisman front. I mean, there's one name that comes to mind who did, and it's
Big game boomer.
and
They,
once again,
they actually won.
he was wrong.
Yeah.
That's all that matters to me. But yeah, I think NC State they did kind of go up and down throughout the year. Because losing Devin Leary halfway through the season definitely hurt their chances. Because we saw them as a top 10, top 15 team,
No,
and they,
I feel like we really saw them potentially making it into the playoffs this year. Well, a lot of people predicted that they could have made it to the playoffs this year.
a
Yeah,
lot of people being
yeah, big game mover is one of them.
um, but speaking of in-state rivalries that took a turn for the worse for some schools, Oregon State. Oregon was up by 21 going into the fourth quarter, and they blew it. Oregon State didn't even pass the ball, and they, won in Corvallis. And I mean, Bo Nix kind of looked like the Auburn Bo Nix in this game, kind of just lackluster.
Yeah, I
And
remember. Oh my bad. I
I was saying
remember.
it basically just eliminated Oregon from any chance of getting the Pac-12 championship with this game.
Yeah, I remember watching this game, and I was like, "Dang, um, Oregon is really beating the crap out of Oregon State." It was to be expected, but out of nowhere, I just see at the bottom, watching ESPN at the bottom, Oregon State beats Oregon. I'm like, how is that even possible? How much were they up at one point, Will? I think they were up,
21.
yeah, 23 touchdowns, and out of nowhere, Oregon State comes back and win. That
Yeah,
really surprised me.
and Oregon, like they were at the 1 yard line, couldn't convert. They went 4 and out,
Yeah,
like with 2 minutes left.
because I stopped watching this game after halftime. I'm like, Oregon has this in the bag. They will be most likely playing USC in the Pac-12 championship
No, they're
tournament.
out.
Well, yeah, I said that's what my mindset going into
Yeah, because
the
they
second
were
half.
basically a lock.
Yeah, they were basically, but then what? They lost to Washington. Then they end up losing to Oregon State.
Yeah, they fell to 9-3. They began the season by getting absolutely dominated by Georgia, and then lost to Washington, and now a loss to, um,
Oregon State.
yeah, Oregon State, and they're now below Oregon State
Yeah,
in
which
the
is
playoff poll.
kind of surprising to me. Our next game, probably the biggest game of the season, it really switched around the playoff poll. We've been talking about this game all year, really. Literally since the beginning of the year, we were talking about how the college football playoffs could change as soon as this game happens. And guess what? It did. Ohio State, I still think they have a decent chance of making the college football playoffs. Them getting a rematch for the rivalry game is not really in the cards, I don't think, unless Georgia loses somehow to LSU. Don't see that happening. But Michigan coming in and beating Ohio State at home, well, at Michigan's home. I honestly, I had a tingle in my bones that Michigan would win this game. I was watching the Hampton Hoop podcast or Hampton Sports podcast with our guy Cooper Neal and Jack Hampton, and Jack said that Michigan will dominate the run game and dominate the clock by using the run game to keep possession of the ball most of the games. And that kind of happened, but not really. Michigan's defense really came out swinging, playing like a Michigan defense that we've seen in the past few years. They've had a pretty good defense, and JJ McCarthy played good this game. Don't you think, Will?
Yeah, and this is a Michigan team that was out without Blake Corum, their star running back, probably the best running back in the country right now, and they won by 22. In Columbus, first time winning in Columbus in 22 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Michigan I think has a really good shot with Corum coming back against Purdue, possibly coming back against Purdue this upcoming weekend in Indy. I think Michigan has a really good shot of winning it all. First time in 25 years.
Yeah. And if Blake Corum doesn't come back, Donovan Edwards had 216 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns, which is amazing against a top 4 team or a top 2 team in Ohio State. Honestly, I loved watching this game. It was a very exciting game to watch. I wish it was a night game, but it wasn't. It was one of the first games on that day.
They're always the 11 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, they really should change that, and it's literally the biggest rivalry in college football. They should change that to a 6 o'clock game. But
As long as we're alive, they're going to be 11 o'clock. Alabama Auburn's going to be 2:30. And when it's not on here, but briefly on Bama, we beat Auburn. Yay. Brought Holly Rice Young's last game because if we don't make the playoffs, he's not going to start. Same with Will Anderson. If you're a college football team and you're looking for a head coach, please take Bill O'Brien and or Pete Quinn from us. And that's my piece on the Iron Bowl.
yeah, we had a upset. South Carolina really catching their stride in the second half of the season. They beat number 8 Clemson. They beat them 31-30. Beat them by 1 point. And Spencer Rattler really the last 2 games between Tennessee and Clemson, he's shown that he's the Spencer Rattler most people thought, even though he did have 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions this game. But he's shown that he's a pretty legit QB. I'd see him coming back next year. For the love of God, for his career, he needs to come back next year. But South Carolina will be a player next year, in my opinion, if they start off strong and not lose to teams like Arkansas in the beginning of the season. But what's their coach's name? Dang.
Who, South Carolina?
Yeah, dang, I know it. It's not
Shane
Will.
Beamer.
Yeah, Shane Beamer. For some reason, I want to say Will Muschamp. That was their old coach.
Yep.
But Shane Beamer is looking like a legit coach for South Carolina. Blowing out Tennessee and beating their rival and spoiling their rival season because Clemson had a chance to make it into the playoffs if they win this game.
Yeah, and also worth noting, Clemson was on a 40-something game winning streak at home before this game.
Yeah, which is crazy.
And I think the only other team that had a streak as long was Cincinnati, and they lost to Tulane.
Yeah.
Same day.
Do you think that DJ Uiagalelei will transfer after the season?
There are a lot of rumors saying he is, and if so, the likely destination I've seen him is Notre Dame, which I think could be a good fit.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good fit. And if KJ decides to go in the draft, I don't think he will. Hey, come to Arkansas, man. We need a backup QB or another QB since Malik Hornsby just entered the transfer portal, whichever.
Or come to Bama.
I feel like the Bama pressure would destroy him, and you would probably end up hating DJ after.
I'll just blame it on Bill O'Brien if he's still there, just ruining all the talent.
Yeah. Hey, him and Bryce Young were the 1-2 QBs coming out of high school, so
yeah,
wouldn't be surprised. But Alabama has a lot of QB talent.
And we just signed on another 5-star quarterback from I think class 26.
Yes.
But this next game did ruin a chance of another SEC school for the playoffs, and that was LSU going up against an A&M team that had nothing to play for.
Yeah, literally nothing. They can't make a bowl. Can't spoil. Well, the only thing they really had was to spoil LSU's chances of making the college football playoffs.
And
If
that's exactly what they did.
yeah,
They
and
fired Dale Dickey today, which kind of makes sense. It hurts a little because he is from Memphis, but they weren't gonna will out to pay Jimbo's 80 something million buyout at this point.
hey,
So
if he wants, and Memphis, they said they're not firing Silverfield, but hey, if Memphis finds a way to fire Silverfield, he has a job at home. He's a Memphis guy.
yeah,
Will
it is a possibility. But it was reported that Silverfield and Seth Hannigan are coming back next year. Hannigan, I do like. He was one of the best quarterback. He was one of the better freshman quarterbacks we saw last year, and he's kind of slow regression this year. But I think next year we can kind of see that form again.
Yeah, hopefully Memphis can get back to what they were when not Mike Norvell and Justin Fuente was there.
Yeah,
But other than that, this game was kind of crazy to me. A lot of people are jumping ship from the Texas A&M team. I've seen a lot of players enter the transfer portal. Jalen Daniels didn't have a great game, scored 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions with only 189 yards. All their touchdowns came from their running back, what's his name, John Emery Jr., and
yeah.
he didn't even lead the team in rushing yards. So,
No,
but
but I will say this about A&M, and their one of their better receivers last week was Moose Muhammad, and he put on a really good show. He had amazing catches. I don't know if you were really watching that game in depth, but like he had a really nice one-handed grab in the corner of the end zone.
yeah, I saw that. I saw that he was catching a lot of nice passes. And let's not forget about A-Chain, their running back. He had 2 touchdowns this game with 215 yards. So he's probably, I could see him going second, third round, being a good NFL running back. But other than that, Texas A&M, if they don't step up next year, we could see them try to buy out Jimbo Fisher just to save their program. And I feel like with all the money they've been spending in NIL and all the money they gave him, they have some type of money to buy him out.
Yeah,
So our last college football game that we will talk about today before we get to basketball is Notre Dame, number 15, losing to number 6, USC, which is number 5 now. This game was really good. This is one of the games that I watched. Caleb Williams has shown that he is a Heisman lock this year, and he's been playing good all season. And this game really just put the icing on the cake with his Notre Dame nail polish that he had on in this game.
yeah. Like it was kind of hinting of Caleb Williams possibly being that good of a quarterback. We didn't really say he was going to be Heisman worthy, but with everyone else kind of falling behind and CJ Stroud not looking as good as we thought, Bryce Young kind of regression. Thanks, Bill. Um, DJ sucked. Drake May only in big game boomers' eyes,
Yeah,
but it really came down to like really him and Blake Corum, and Corum being injured helped him. And a lot of people can just look at it that way. And this game was basically him saying, "I'm gonna win the Heisman."
yeah.
And this is the first time USC won the Heisman since I guess Reggie Bush, if you want to count that.
What
But
was he? Was did Reggie Bush win it after Matt Leinart? I thought
yeah,
he.
it was the year after Leinart.
Okay, I thought it was the year before. But yeah,
But obviously NCAA took that away because of dumb rules that don't apply anymore.
yeah.
But
Honestly, they should just give him his Heisman back. Literally, the rules that he got stripped for, they are legal now. But
yeah, but he's gonna win the Heisman at this point. Oklahoma fans cry about it.
yeah, who do you feel like will get invited to the Heisman ceremony? I'm gonna say my top four, probably Caleb Williams for sure because he's gonna win it. C.J. Stroud, Blake Corum, and I'm gonna say Max Duggan is my fourth.
I I was debating between Duggan, but I think they're gonna look more at Hendon Hooker after what he did before he got injured. Um, so I'm gonna say it's gonna go. I mean, Caleb Williams is gonna win, and then it's gonna be C.J. Stroud, Blake Corum, and Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, that's a nice list. I feel like Max Duggan, depending on how he plays for this championship game, he could end up becoming in that Heisman conversation when it gets to invites.
Yeah.
But now, Will, you have some new coaching hires for the big teams.
Yeah, so some of the Power Five schools have already announced their new hirings. The one we're waiting on is Colorado because they are looking at Deion Sanders, but Deion's come out and said, I'm not going to talk about that until after the SWAC championship this weekend.
Yeah.
But Auburn hired Hugh Freeze, which I kind of expected, and I think they really looked at him because he beat Alabama twice. Other than that, he just has a bunch of NCAA scandals against him. Wisconsin brought in Luke Fickle, who I thought was going to take the Auburn job personally, but Wisconsin, that's kind of like a good neighborhood. Speaking of staying in the Big Ten, Nebraska brought in Matt Rule after he got fired from Carolina last week, or
Yeah,
not last week, last month. They gave him a big contract.
he
Same
did.
contract with Lane Kiffin actually. Also,
I'd
Lane
say
Kiffin.
he did show when he was at Baylor. He literally brought Baylor's name out of the depths of the underground after their,
The
they,
Art Briles situation.
yeah, their grape scandal. We can't use that word. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, this is a PG show.
No, I'm just talking about just in general
I know what you're talking about.
for YouTube. I don't think we can use that word.
But yeah, so Matt Rule got a 8-year, $9 million a year contract, which is 72 million a year. Lane Kiffin also got that extension at Ole Miss, even after they lost the Egg Bowl,
It's
because there were rumors of him possibly leaving for Auburn after this game, but it's not. Arizona State's bringing in Dillingham from Oregon. He was their offensive coordinator. He's an Arizona State grad, so it makes sense. And then Georgia Tech is removing the interim tag from Brent Key. He is going to be the new head coach for the Yellow Jackets after going 4-4, especially with that big win over North Carolina the other week. So I think Colorado is the biggest name available. I know South Florida is out there because they were also looking over at Dion. There's a few smaller schools, like I know UAB actually hired Trent Dilfer
yeah, I
today.
do that, which is
Um,
that's a pretty good hire. He's ran the Elite 11 camp. I feel like he can get a pretty good recruiting class just for his football knowledge and him being involved. I feel like the transfer portal is really going to be his best friend, and him being involved with top recruits coming into college football from the open tournament. So, Will, that's it for football. We do have a lot. When I mean a lot of stuff happening in college basketball, I mean a lot. I'm very excited for this. I know you are too, because this first team that we will talk about got upset twice. They were the number one team going into last week. North Carolina got upset twice. What tournament were they in?
this was the Phil Knight Invitational.
Oh yeah, the Phil Knight Invitational. So North Carolina lost to Iowa State 70-65, and they also lost to Alabama 103 to 101 in quadruple overtime, Will. I know you probably watched that game. How did you feel watching that game?
Well, I was actually on the road for most of it. I was only able to turn it on right as the fourth quarter started. That's when I walked home or
Oh,
walked in home.
so you got the best part of the game, basically.
Yeah, but from what I was able to watch Bama earlier throughout this tournament when they played Michigan State and UConn, is that Brandon Miller is going to be Brandon Miller is going to be a top 5 pick in this upcoming draft. The way he's playing, and he's been putting on amazing stats.
Top
Um,
five is crazy.
what
Did you say top five?
possibly?
I don't know about that. Just because the way that the NBA draft is, it's performance based. I say like 35%, but the rest of that is potential based.
Yeah.
But if that's how you feel, that's how you feel.
But now we travel over to Battle for Atlantis, where Kansas, the defending champions, got upset by Tennessee. Something about, big teams getting upset by Tennessee this year.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think Tennessee was going to be that good this year. Um, I still don't think they're going to be that good. Kansas did slip up. They lost. They lost by 14. I see that they have a young team. They have a NCAA championship hangover a little. Grady Dick he's been light for Kansas, and I can see them possibly making the Final Four again this upcoming year or this upcoming Final Four. For this game, Grady Dick only had 7 points. Not only one starter were in double figures from what I've seen. Tennessee has a very veteran team, so I feel like earlier matchups they will win. I can see Tennessee being top three in the SEC this year. Do I see them winning the SEC championship again? Nah, not really. They're not as deep as a lot of the SEC teams that we've seen. Like Alabama is pretty good. Kentucky, I feel like they're going to be kind of overrated just because they have the defending Naismith Player of the Year and Oscar Sheboy.
Yeah,
Arkansas,
well, I was gonna say, looking at the AP polls, and I know we're talking about the second, but the best team, like the highest ranked team right now in the conference, is Alabama and Arkansas, both tied at 11.
yeah,
So
yeah, and Arkansas, they lost the game. I didn't put that on here. They lost to Creighton, and most people saying that might be the game of the year. In at the Maui Invitationals, it was a pretty back and forth game. Creighton did edge out a young Arkansas team. And Arkansas, this is the first time I ever seen Arkansas look good beginning of the season since Musselman's been there. We usually look pretty bad at the beginning of the season, and once conference play comes, we go on a huge win streak to become a top three seed in the country for some reason. But as an Arkansas fan, I feel like this year is possibly a year where we make Final Four and probably even makes a push to win the national championship. Not non-biased, my non-biased opinion, just because how deep our bench is and how athletic and long our team is. Well,
yeah. And now we go to wait, what tournament was this? For Duke and Purdue.
um, Purdue and Gonzaga's the Phil Knight legacy.
Yeah, that was the other Phil Knight one, and just from Purdue winning the whole thing, beating out Gonzaga and Duke, there is a strong contender for the Naismith candidate in Zach Edey, and
He is if you look at Edey, you would be like that guy is just a tall, slow center who probably doesn't really have much footwork, but watching him play, and they're playing right now. Honest, last I saw, and they're in a close battle with someone before we started recording this episode, which is Wednesday. But
they beat Florida State and won
oh
finals.
yeah, they ended up winning. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So Purdue is looking legit without Jaden Ivey.
yeah. I like I said, Jaden Ivey was going to be like that kind of it factor for Purdue last year, and they went far. They missed out. Ivey's now with the Pistons, and he was my initial pick for Rookie of the Year. I know we didn't talk about it, but I put that out there. Um, but I think with Zach Edey, Purdue can get far. And right now they're at 5. They had 8 votes for first place. So, and they moved up 19 spots to get there.
Yeah, and they blew out probably one of the most hyped teams in college basketball when Gonzaga. Gonzaga's always overhyped in my opinion every year. He had 23 that game.
Yeah, right now Edey's been averaging 21 points a game. So, moving on to some of these other smaller games, like Marquette, they actually just upset Baylor. That's their one loss. Virginia beat Michigan. Um, well, Michigan wasn't even ranked.
No,
So
but it was I was watching that game yesterday and it was really good. Michigan was up most of the game towards the end and just their inexperience and I don't think their bench is very deep. And Virginia they just have a great coach. with Coach Bennett. And Joanne Howard's is still learning the reins of being a college basketball coach. He has a good team and has one of the better centers in the country with Hunter Dickerson, and his son, I think is Jet Howard. Yeah, Jet Howard is the one that's, I think he's either leading them in points or he's second behind Hunter Dickerson. But he's a lights out shooter. They're a really good shooting team from what I saw. They have Joey Baker. I don't know if you remember Joey Baker. He came in with RJ Barrett, Zion Williamson, and Cam Reddish to Duke and ended up transferring to Michigan this year.
Yeah.
But he's coming off their bench and he's playing really good. But one other thing, one team will no one would have thought would be winless this year is Louisville. They are 0-7 starting off the season, Will.
They have struggled.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad. Arkansas did play them, and me watching that game, that Maui game, Louisville just looks bad, man. They do have a new coach. I give them that, but there's no way. I wouldn't. Well, you could say Louisville's a blue blood, but not really. They're a little lower tier than blue blood. They just don't look good at all.
No, and they lost to inner city school, Bellarmine, a small school based in Louisville. They lost to Wright State, then Appalachian State, and then Arkansas, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Maryland. They don't play until Sunday when it's Miami, and they're already starting conference play early. But the Kenny Payne era is off to a really, really slow start, especially when you consider like how traditional of a program Louisville basketball is. They're playing one of the biggest arenas in the country when it comes to college basketball, and you're losing to Bellarmine and Wright State and Appalachian State all by 1 point each.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough for Louisville. I am gonna talk about the AP polls. So Houston is now the number one overall team. Texas has moved up 2 spots to 2. Arizona moved up 10 spots because they won the Maui Invitational, and they're at 4. Virginia also moved up. Purdue moving up 19 spots after 2 big wins last week to number 5. Baylor, even though they did lose to Marquette, I expect them to fall after this week because the game they lost to Marquette was yesterday. They are number 6. Creighton is number 3 after coming second in the Maui Invitational. And UConn, who would have thought UConn would be back in the top 10 after losing Jim Calhoun as a coach a few years ago. They are number 8. Kansas has dropped to 6 spots to number 9. As we talked about a little bit earlier, Alabama moves up 7 spots and Arkansas dropped 2, and they are tied for 11. Tennessee moved up 9 spots to 13. Gonzaga dropped 8 to 14. What other big drops? UNC ended up dropping
19,
17,
17.
18, and Duke dropped 9 spots to 17. Michigan State dropped 8 spots to 20, but Michigan State has looked good. Their 2 losses have came to Gonzaga, and I don't know the other.
Alabama.
Yeah, they lost to Alabama. And other than that, San Diego State dropped 7 spots to 24, which they lost to 2 really good teams in Arizona and Arkansas. But they also, honestly, me watching San Diego State, they were beating Arkansas most of the game. They are just missing size. They kind of remind me of Arkansas last year. They're missing size, and I feel like they could end up being in the mix when it comes to decision day in March. TCU, Iowa, Charleston, West Virginia, and Mississippi State are the 5 teams looking into the top 25. TCU are trying to battle back into the top 25 after being ranked in the preseason polls. Charleston is really a team that's really surprised me. And Will, I actually have a question if you saw the Davidson Charlotte game, the ending from last night.
I saw it briefly, but I don't really remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure it was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. Charlotte literally missed 4 game winners or game sealers and ended up getting the ball on the top of the key and the guy shooting a three and winning it with no time left. It was crazy.
Yep. And so I think that's gonna wrap it up for today's episode. Before we go, I do want to leave it off like we normally do with a Sean Tucker tweet recapping his game against Boston College.
Let's go.
Saturday, we won Syracuse 32, DC 23. I'm pleased with the outcome of the game and another fourth quarter comeback. I'm pleased with my performance. I rushed for 21 carries, 125 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 1 reception for 4 yards. Thank you to all the Qs fans who supported us throughout the season. Hashtag pleased.
What's up, man? What's up? Well, I hope you have a great night. See you tomorrow, which is Thursday when this video is coming up. And
Yep.
make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Turn the post notification on, and see y'all later. Deuces.
Deuces.